I stood up for Tommy Robinson, and I got 3 or 4 days before I decided to leave the party a text from Richard Tice, who simply said, "Howard, if you continue to support Tommy Robinson, you will be expelled." And this is supposed to be a party of free speech.
What?
You don't have to support Tommy
I have to
Robinson.
say, and why would you want to support this convicted criminal? Well, I'm glad it's a laughing matter. He nearly prejudiced a trial.
Nigel Farage's team aren't going around leading with Tommy. And it's correct what Nick Ferrari says. He is a convicted criminal. So was Martin Luther King Jr., by the way. So was Nelson Mandela. I'm not comparing Tommy to those saintly figures, but I'm saying that is not necessarily a disqualification.
Breaking right now, the Daily Mail has claimed that the secret row going on inside Reform UK is specifically over the party's position on Tommy Robinson. So let me take you through this article from the columnist Dan Hodges. No fan of Tommy Robinson or Reform UK, it has to be said. However, very, very well sourced on this matter. He writes, "In truth, the Reform UK civil war is a proxy war, one in which Tommy Robinson's allies are attempting to leverage their presence on X while being egged on by its man-child owner to force Farage into adopting ever more extreme stances or force him out. Lowe is simply their useful idiot. Yet there is no prospect of them succeeding, for the very simple reason that the voters won't allow it. Reform are currently leading the Tories and closely challenging Labour in the national polls, averaging around 23% of the vote. Their support has taken a hit as a result of Farage's unwise dalliance with Donald Trump. But disillusionment with the main two parties is still raw, and Reform remain on course to make major gains in the local elections. Those gains will mean nothing if the extremists attempting to dislodge or neuter Farage are successful. Britain knows the difference between those who reflect legitimate anger at the collapse of our borders and those who want to use that collapse to prosecute their divisive agenda. They know that Islamic extremism, not Muslims, is the enemy, and they can clearly see football hooligan Tommy Robinson for what he is." So two things will happen. Either Nigel Farage will win his fight with Rupert Lowe and Anansi Khan will again descend for Reform, or Farage will walk away and reconstitute his party elsewhere, just as he reconstituted his other political vehicles. So let me bring in my superstar panel, Montgomery Toms and Ezra Levant, publisher of Rebel News, a close ally of Tommy Robinson. Of course, this is the mainstream media position, which is that Tommy Robinson is evil. However, I think the Daily Mail is actually right on this one, Ezra. Tommy Robinson is at the heart of this row. Nigel Farage, for whatever reason, cannot bring himself to embrace your guy, a guy who you've supported for a long time, at all.
And I don't think he should embrace Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is tough to embrace, especially for a political party that's trying to win a majority. And by the way, I really admire Nigel Farage. I credit him for Brexit when no one thought it was possible. And his battle against Coots, that fancy bank that debanked him and thousands of others, I actually think that was very principled and brave, actually. I think that maybe Nigel Farage, because of the size of his reputation and the fact that he's known for Brexit and other things besides just Islam, maybe Nigel is the only one who can beat the establishment parties. But I think the whole theme of our show today is, what does it profit you if you win, but you in the end stand for nothing? I think he's got to stand. I think he can show a little more courage. And yes. Donald, I mean, look, America is different, I know, and Trump is one of a kind, I know. But I think that actually if Nigel Farage would show more boldness, I think he would get more support. He's terrified of being labeled far right. I know that. In America, at least, that kind of name-calling cancel culture has sort of been spent.
Yes.
I don't think it works as much anymore. I don't know about the UK. I think Nigel I don't know if Rupert, I admire Rupert Law, I love him. I just don't know if he's got the name and the reputation and the horsepower and the connections, and he's not a household name like Nigel. Tommy Robinson shines a light on things that others don't. That doesn't mean Tommy should be an MP. It means we should protect Tommy's civil rights, and I think we should listen to some of the things he says. I think this, I just wish it could be patched up. I hate to see these men quarrel, but at the end of the day, if I'm being a pragmatist, I think only Nigel can win.
Okay, that's really interesting, actually. Montgomery Toms, where do you stand on the issue of whether Reform UK should embrace or support Tommy Robinson, or actually are they wise to say, no, we don't want to be labelled far right, so we've got to keep our distance from this guy?
Well, look, the people want to be listened to. And I think that this is really, really, really important, especially for Reform as a growing party, because ultimately, over the past 4 or 5 years specifically, I think we can all agree that we have seen some bizarre attacks on kind of democracy and mass authoritarianism and lockdowns and jab mandates and all of these crazy things. And there's a lot of people who have shifted from kind of resisting that level of authoritarianism, who are now in support and looking at reform kind of for answers. But something that we should not lose sight of is the fact that the people, especially in the UK, are meant to be at the heart of democracy. That's the whole nature of democracy. The people's voices are listened to. So if Reform's support base, or let's not even say Reform support base, just the people in general, are looking for a conversation and an endorsement of debate, not to say I'm going to take a position on endorsing Tommy Robinson, but to say, but let's have a public, open, proper discussion and invite the likes of Rupert Lowe, for example, to have that kind of conversation, and that should be welcomed. And I think it's incredibly stupid and foolish to not open up the possibility of that
well,
kind
of course,
conversation.
Of course, because one of the huge issues here, and actually, I love the way that Ezra puts it, because it's not about necessarily embracing Tommy Robinson, saying that everything he does is great and that he should be a member of Reform. And Tommy has confirmed personally to me, by the way, that he doesn't want to be a member of Reform. He just wants Reform to stop attacking him. But the problem for me is a question of demonization. And it's the mainstream media that have demonized Tommy Robinson for a very long time. Remember, I worked in the British mainstream media for 20 years. I know it's impossible to talk about Tommy Robinson in the mainstream media if you want to keep your job. You're just not allowed to do it. And we saw a really great example about this on LBC, left-wing station these days, but a right-wing host at breakfast time, Nick Ferrari. And when he was interviewing Howard Cox today, now Howard Cox is a great guy, fair fuel campaigner, recently thrust out of Reform UK specifically for his support of Tommy Robinson on this show, which, can I say, was measured and balanced and was saying, look, we've just got to be careful, we don't have political prisoners, but still he was gone. And the moment he raises Tommy Robinson, look at how Nick Ferrari turns.
Actually, what we're seeing is a dictatorship. It's nothing less than a dictatorship. You are thrown under the bus if you criticise anything, and I'm one of those people that have been thrown under the bus, along with people like Ben Habib and now Rupert Lowe.
Why were you thrown under the bus, Mr. Cox? What was your, quotes, crime?
Well, I agree with most of Reform UK's policies. That's why I stood for them, no problem at all. But there's one that I disagree with, and it's the way they've treated Tommy Robinson. And I stood up for Tommy Robinson, and I got 3 or 4 days before I decided to leave the party, a text from Richard Tice, who simply said, Howard, if you continue to support Tommy Robinson, you will be expelled. And this is supposed to be a party of free speech. You don't have to support Tommy Robinson.
I have to say, why would you want to support this convicted criminal? I'm glad it's a laughing matter. He nearly prejudiced a trial.
Yes, but we can go on and talk about Tommy
Well,
Robinson.
let's not, because that probably is a separate conversation. But so you're saying you're not allowed to express individual views within the top ranks of Reform. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Cox? You better stay with that conversation.
That's exactly right, Nick. And my inbox is flooded with people from branches right across the country, Reform branches, chairmen who've been thrown out, pushed out. In fact, whole complete Reform parties been thrown out. Take Amber Valley, for example. They've now set up, the Amber Valley ex-reformers have now set up an independence group.
But Ezra Levant, Isn't that so instructive, that whole dialogue? So Nick Ferrari immediately feels that he has to say, Tommy Robinson, terrible, terrible man, prejudice to trial. When Howard Cox actually wants to have an intelligent discussion about the truth of the situation and about the fact that it's nuanced, he immediately gets told to move on. We're just not even going to have the conversation. And unfortunately, that is so representative of virtually all of the British mainstream media. It's basically like Tommy Robinson is the worst person in the world, or we're just going to ignore him altogether. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected? Well, I've been thinking increasingly of the need for personal protection too, from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. I'm delighted to tell you I have now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. Let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online, because it also allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels, including streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if you have a favorite show, this happens to me a lot, which is blocked on Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Disney Plus in your country, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports coverage. This is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries too. For example, France, which has blocked Rumble for so long now. I can't believe that. Effectively, you can watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom, and you know I'm all about true freedom. A VPN can also save you money because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. There are other benefits of Surfshark too. You can use it on unlimited devices, meaning your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if this is your first time using a VPN. Go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark is so confident it's the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you'll get your money back. Go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show.
Yeah. You know, if that standard that Richard Tice imposed there were to be imposed on the Reform UK team in Clacton-on-Sea, 90% of the people would be gone. I'm just saying, they're all Tommy fans. Now, they're wise. I think there's a common sense of the common man in Clacton-on-Sea. Nigel Farage's team aren't going around leading with Tommy. And it's correct what Nick Ferrari says. He is a convicted criminal. So was Martin Luther King Jr., by the way. So was Nelson Mandela. I'm not comparing Tommy to those saintly figures, but I'm saying that is not necessarily a disqualification. And in fact, if we've got the time, I'd like to tell a 60-second anecdote about that allegation that Nick Ferrari made about Tommy Robinson almost scuppering a trial. You heard him say it. He almost upended a rape gang trial. Almost. That's not quite true. The trial was over. The jury had rendered its verdict. It was Judgment Day. So the jury was done. All that was happening is that the accused rapists were coming into court with their prison bags. They would find out the verdict, and in fact, they were found guilty and were sent away. And all Tommy was doing was standing on the steps of the court, asking them as they walked into the court, how do you feel about your chances today? How do you feel about your verdict today? That's literally all he asked. So to say that action, after a trial was concluded on verdict day, almost upended a trial is factually false. Yeah. And I just want to say that because I've heard that same Nick Ferrari line again and again.
It's used all the time.
Look, let me just say one thing about Tommy Robinson. He's not running for office. He's not looking to be endorsed by Nigel Farage. Why can't Nigel Farage or Rupert Lowe or any of these people, when asked, what do you feel about Tommy Robinson, say, look, he's not someone we would want to run for our party for a number of reasons. But even if we disagree him on A, B, and C, we can still be worried about the issues he exposes. A sign pointing the way to Tipperary doesn't have to go to Tipperary itself. The sign, that's not a great analogy, but my point is the person pointing out the flaws in society doesn't have to be perfect himself. Is there something we can learn from everyone? And in Tommy's case, there is. And by the way, Keir Starmer was bloody lucky that J.D. Vance didn't bring up Tommy's
I was so gutted.
Keir Starmer should consider himself lucky.
Yeah.
Because I know that a lot of people in Trump's circle are on that. And why would that have been an embarrassing moment for Keir Starmer? Because it is so outlandish. And by the way, I think Nigel even said it when he was coming up the escalator at some event. I think he was scrummed on this. And he did say that the solitary confinement was a bit excessive. So I think that this is an all or nothingness here that you don't need. You can say, look, Tommy Robinson has a lot of flaws. But there are some things he points out that I think should be taken in consideration by polite company, by people in the judiciary, by people in Parliament. And we don't have to agree with everything Tommy says or does to realize he's unearthed some important issues. Why not say that? I say that.
Yeah.
I've never in my life said Tommy's an angel. I know about a lot of his shenanigans, and he's a rough customer, partly because of the path he's been forced to take, partly because of he really has been treated as an enemy of the state. It's
exactly.
miraculous.
It's like Katie Hopkins as well, isn't it? It's like if you try and destroy someone, then of course you push them into having to live in quite an extreme way. Montgomery Toms, I know that you really became politically engaged over the course of the pandemic when you saw the dishonesty from the mainstream media. Do you feel like they are also dishonest when it comes to the way that they covered the Tommy Robinson case?
What are they honest about? I mean, the mainstream media, is a tool to manipulate and convince the general public of anything which is on the current agenda, isn't it? I think one thing that's super important, and I know I might sound like a broken record, but it is debate. And one thing we mustn't adopt is there's everything wrong with saying, oh, I hold these politics or maybe more right-wing politics, and maybe you agree with that or disagree with that. But if you adopt the same mentality that the kind of far left adopt of not being able to debate and being incredibly emotional and not capable of hashing out difficult ideas, then there is no future for politics or progression, especially in the UK. And I think that that's something we need to be really sensitive about, is having conversations which are difficult. And if Reform don't come forward and have that kind of conversation, then there's going to be a real problem. And I remember when Tice came out after one of the Tommy rallies and said that he doesn't endorse Tommy Robinson. And I was really, really shocked, because it's really easy to word things carefully and be nuanced and say, look, no, I don't endorse the whole of Tommy Robinson, but there could be something he's got to say which is useful and that the British public wants to be discussed publicly. Unless that happens, that's really, really concerning.
Yes. And when it comes to the Muslim rape gangs, Nigel Farage this week tried to claim credit, saying he had fought against the rape gangs for over a decade. Now, we had two interesting responses from women who I respect highly. First, Sammy Woodhouse, who's working for you, Ezra, at the moment at Rebel News. Please explain to us what it is you've done to fight for over a decade, Nigel. I offered to work with your party for free, and no one was interested. The only person in the party that ever reached out to myself was Rupert Lowe. And Samantha Smith, another survivor of the rape gang, said, no, you haven't, Nigel. You only started fighting Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs when it became politically convenient for you. Don't you dare try to claim credit for the decades of work done by survivors while you sat in willful ignorance like the rest of the political elite. And Ezra, I have huge respect for both Samantha Smith and Sammy Woodhouse, and I found those responses to Farage really visceral, actually.
I don't know where Sammy and Samantha get their courage.
Amazing.
It's
woman.
amazing to me. We're delighted to have Sammy Woodhouse working with Rebel News. She has such moral authority, and I agree with her. Every once in a while, the establishment goes through a performance to say how much they care, and then they hit the snooze button. And I don't know if you have time for a quick anecdote, but when Tommy Robinson worked for Rebel News, there was a case of Chelsea Wright from Sunderland, and she was a young woman, went to a bar, and next thing she knows, she wakes up in a house with 5 migrant men, half naked. She breaks her way out, screaming in the streets. The police come, take her, do a rape test, 2 different DNA samples, but the 5 migrant men inside are let go. No one's charged. And the police and the Crown prosecution refused to prosecute. It's even worse. We tried to hire a lawyer to represent Chelsea, and the law firm took it. Like, she's a rape victim. And the day later, the law firm wrote us a letter saying we had a meeting, and for reputational reasons, we will not take Chelsea's case. What? She's just an ordinary person. But because the accused rapists were Muslim migrants, this fancy pants downtown big city law firm with all the wigs, so
Shameful.
grand, wouldn't take her case because they were worried about being seen to oppose Muslim migrants. They wouldn't take a rape victim's case. That's crazy. The establishment in the UK. Is there anything different now when Rotherham happened and was first discussed? And frankly, it was Sammy Woodhouse who blew the whistle on that. What's changed? Can you tell me what's changed? Are you telling me there's no more rape gangs? Are you telling me that there's no more aversion to prosecuting them or defending these victims? The fear of being called racist, that's what is animating Nigel. If you read the inquiry into Rotherham, and if you do a word search for the word racist, again and again, social workers, doctors, police, everyone, when they're asked, why the hell didn't you say something? They say every time, we were afraid of being called racist. That is what is holding Nigel Farage back and half of the British elite.
So true. So true. But people have to be bold and have to be brave. And congratulations for Sammy Woodhouse and Samantha Smith for all of the work they have done. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.